Today we're going to make split pea and ham hock soup. It's winter and this is a really good soup for winter. Now if you notice on my sign I said ham hock / shank soup. I prefer ham shanks. Not every grocery store has them. Mine didn't have them this time, but if you can, get ham shanks. 2 ham shanks should be plenty. There's usually about 2 in a package. But today I'm going to use 3 ham hocks. The idea for this, I've had this recipe about 40 years, came from a friend of ours named Hawk. If you've watched my husband's videos, Martin's Cabin or Northwoodsman 1, you've seen memorial signs to Hawk, who died young. But his mom used to make this soup when they would go up to the cabin. I found a recipe and we love it, and it's been favored by a lot of people ever since then. Here are the ingredients for ham hock / shank soup. I have 3 ham hocks, 1 bag of green split peas, this is a pound. This is 1 medium onion. I have 2 carrots that are diced, a celery stick that is diced, a potato, a medium potato diced, 2 tablespoons of butter, and 1 teaspoon of ground thyme. Now we come to the mustard. I prefer to use mustard seeds and grind them myself. That's what the recipe calls for. This is, you take 2 teaspoons of mustard seeds and mash them up in your, I used to use a hammer and a baggie, but then I got this. You make them fine and it ends up to be about 3½ teaspoons of mustard. You can use mustard from the can, and I have, but it's not as good. It will work fine though. If that's what you have, it works fine. You need 7 cups of water. So this recipe is simple, but there's a little more cutting to be done because of all the vegetables in it. But you can do it. As we're waiting for my burner to heat up, I thought I'd show you how I do my recipes. I've typed them up and put them on paper, and then I laminate them, and then I don't ever have to worry about getting them all dirty. I've got split pea and ham shank on this side, and wild rice and chicken soup on the other. Very handy to laminate these. Okay, so first things first. The first thing you want to do is take those split peas and rinse them. And I looked up the reason you rinse them. One is to get any dirt off the peas that might be there, and the other is they're softened up a little bit so they cook quicker. So you rinse your peas. Now they'll get hard as a rock. You'll have to soften them up when you put them in, but rinse your peas first. Now we're going to add the 2 tablespoons of butter to our pot. We're going to let that simmer and then add all the vegetables and saute, except for the potatoes, and saute them a little bit. Okay, I'm letting the vegetables simmer. You don't want them brown, but you just want them softened a little bit. Okay, I've added the water. The vegetables got just a little soft there. It took about 5 minutes. I'm adding the potatoes. Everything else goes in now. I'm adding my split peas. There they go. My thyme. The all-important mustard seed. Stir that around a minute. And I'm adding my ham hocks. Like I said, if you can get ham shanks, get those. But I'm adding my ham hocks, and I'm going to bring this to a boil. Now, the recipe calls for 2 to 2½ hours. It all depends on how mushy you want your soup or how creamy. I do it about an hour, hour and a half. Because after about an hour, I'll see if I can remove the meat from the bones and then add it back to the pot. But if you want a very creamy soup, go 2 hours, maybe a little more. I'm going to cover this after I bring it to a boil and just let it simmer. So as you can see, it's just coming to a boil. I'm going to put a lid on it and let it simmer for about an hour. Turn the heat down. And when that happens, after about an hour, I'm going to see if I can take the ham off the bones. That's all that I'm going to do. And then I will let it cook as long as I want. Maybe another ½ hour, maybe not. Which brings me to another point. When you're cooking, if you like more onions, put more onions in. If you like more carrots, add those. That's all there is to it. Now, the one thing you may have to do when you're cooking this is add more water if it gets too thick. And after I've cooked this, there's just 2 of us. If I freeze some, when I heat it up, it's real thick. Add more water to make it more soupy. Okay, she's simmering away. We're going to let her simmer for a while, and then we'll come back to cut the meat off the bones. As it's simmering away, if you would like a vegetarian take on this, or you don't do ham, I would think you could make this, just leave the ham out. Just use what you have here. I would think there would be nothing wrong with that. Give it a try and let me know how it turns out. I just want to add that I was just doing dishes and Martin walked into the room and I said, you know, if I was famous, I'd have staff to do these dishes. This has been simmering about 35-40 minutes, and I want to kind of show you how the peas are starting to break down. They're getting softer and mushier, and it's doing very well. I have it on very low heat. I have an electric stove, and it's on pretty low just to keep it at this simmer. I'm going to get the meat off of these bones. They've been on for about an hour and 15 minutes. And as you can see, there's this kind of a shell. It's the fat on the outside. You take that off. This is what it looks like. You don't use this. You can get meat off of it if you like. But then I'm just going to start getting the meat off of this ham hock. And then I cut it up and I put it back in the pot. By the way, I also every once in a while stir that pot of peas too so that it doesn't stick on the bottom. Let me get to going on this and I'll get the meat off. Okay, so I took the meat off of these 4 ham hocks and I got about 1.5 cups, 2 cups of meat. Now see, this is fatty, I won't do that. But this is what you're peeling off. You've gotten some flavor from this, but it can be very gristly and you really don't want to eat it. See, it's just a hunk of rind off that ham hock, and you don't eat that. That's tough and it's just all fat. But this will go back in the pot and it'll be plenty. Now if you'd had ham shanks, you wouldn't have had near this much left. Some dilly-dally rye bread on the side, and some wonderful tasting split pea and ham hock or ham shank soup. It's a really good meal for a cold. We're expecting a snowstorm, so this would be a really good supper to have. See how much ham is in there? You could have had more with the shank, but it's still plenty. And I did this an hour and a half. And the peas, you could do it a little longer and have the peas a little more creamy, but we like it like this. So that's about an hour and a half. Have some split pea and ham hock soup, and a slice of my dilly-dally rye for supper on a cold winter night. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks. Bye-bye.